Welcome and thank you for tuning in. I'm Roger Beaudoin, the president of Restaurant Rockstars. This presentation is the top 8 restaurant mistakes that restaurants are making and how to fix them. But first, I have to thank my great friends at Terraslate. Terraslate menus are rip-proof, waterproof, antimicrobial, and don't forget, overnight shipping anywhere. Thank you so much. Let's get on with this. So mistake number 1, running a restaurant. What does that mean? All right, I coach restaurant clients, and my very first question to them is, what business are you in? And what are you selling? Now, that's not a trick question, but what you might imagine I hear all the time is, well, I'm a restaurant owner or a general manager, and I sell food and drink. And I stop them right there, and I say, you know what? When I was running restaurants, I was not in the business of running a restaurant. I was in the business of running a business. And those are two completely different things. And my products were not food and beverages. They were entertainment, consistency, and a whole lot of good times. And that made the big difference for me. So that's a little paradigm shift, but let's talk more about running a business. When you run a business, it's not just about ABC Restaurant. It's about building a strong brand, right? A brand is something that has an aura. It has a creativity. It's got something that captures your guests' imagination. And if you were to query them and take a survey, what is our brand all about? If there was a common thread, then they would know what that brand was, and you would hear the same things over and over again. And the same with your staff. It's a feeling, it's an aura, it's an image. We all know those powerful brands like Starbucks and McDonald's, and you can just look at a logo and you instantly know that that's a powerful brand. Maybe there's even a tagline like Nike is famous for just do it. This is the goal. Don't run a restaurant, run a business, and build a brand. Now, one of the ways we can do that is through influencers. Now, we all have guests that are loyal, repeat visitors that love our restaurants. They can do so much with social media, and if they love your place, you can incentivize them to drive business to your restaurant, perhaps with gift cards. We did that forever. You make friends with concierges at hotels, and you give them an incentive, or taxi or Uber drivers. I mean, these are all influencers that can drive business to your brand and your restaurant. That's what we call affinity. I love the word affinity because it means a very powerful sense of belonging or loyalty to a certain business. When you build a brand, you can sell retail merchandise that's an additional profit center. You can't have too many additional profit centers in your restaurant. And then finally, a team all represent your brand and they're ambassadors for your business. Now, this is what running a business is all about versus running a restaurant. Mistake number 2, having a mission statement. Now that's old and tired, isn't it? And I'm not going to insult anyone that has a mission statement, but if you do, and if it's hanging on the wall, does anyone really pay attention to it? Do they practice what it says? There's a huge difference between a mission statement and a company culture. A company culture is a feeling, a sense of affinity or loyalty or belonging. Your staff will know exactly, is there team spirit? Is there morale? Are we recognized and rewarded for outstanding achievement? These are all things that build a company culture, and that creates longevity versus high turnover in your business. What is this culture all about? Again, team spirit. The expectations that you set for your people are super, super important. Now, accountability is lacking in a lot of businesses, and we can talk about that more coming up. But it's really about pride. It's about morale, team spirit, setting expectations in a high bar, and then holding people accountable to performance. Recognizing talent, giving them additional responsibility that they take pride in. That's the difference between a mission statement and a culture. Okay, mistake number 3, being a manager. I don't like that word. And just because someone holds the title of manager or they're promoted to be a manager, which happens all the time in our business, doesn't mean that they're inspired, they inspire others, they create motivation in people, they recognize talent, they move people into additional responsibility if those people want it, and they empower them. And they critique performance instead of criticizing, and with that additional responsibility, they give them recognition and rewards and even incentives for moving up in the organization. That's a leader versus a manager. Leadership is really the way forward. You know, before the pandemic, management was the rule, and management sometimes didn't mean someone was respected. It means maybe they were feared, maybe they managed by intimidation, maybe they thought that, their team were expendable resources because if you don't do it the right way, there's someone behind you that will. And now that's just not the case. With the labor crisis that everyone's struggling with right now, it's really about creating leadership. Empowerment. I love the word empowerment. Now let's go back to another word I don't like, delegation, another word that is overused in our business. Anyone can delegate, which means telling someone what to do and even how to do it. But empowered people give people that sense of pride and give them opportunities to make mistakes because we're human and we critique that performance. We teach people how they can make, those mistakes corrected and how they can move on and really make an impact on your business. That's empowerment. And then, of course, if there's an incentive for doing so, recognition and rewards programs, they feel special. They feel like they're part of a super team. And again, that lowers your turnover because people don't want just a job. Perhaps they want some knowing that their voice matters, their opinion matters, and that they can move up in your organization. And then they, in turn, are going to grow your brand and your business. Very powerful stuff. Okay, recognize that talent. It's not just about hiding in the back office. It's like the restaurant is your office, every part of that restaurant, and then empowering people to have a set of eyes and notice things and fix what they see as broken and giving them the responsibility to fix things they can fix. And if they can't, then to bring things to your attention, of course, and then you take care of it. But that leads to a word also that I love. It's intrapreneur. Now, everyone has heard the word entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who takes a risk to start a business in the hopes of making a profit. And they take on so much risk, and it's so challenging to start a company. But you have so many people in your business that have an immediate opportunity to make money. They have ideas. They see things behind the scenes that you might miss. And if they're not incentivized and encouraged to share those ideas and to run a piece of your business as if they owned it and had to pay for it, then you just have employees. You don't have entrepreneurs. The entrepreneur idea is so powerful. And that's where leaders come in. I stopped using the word manager decades ago, and I had a dining room leader. I had a bar leader. I had a general leader. All of these people were entrepreneurs and they were incentivized to find something that they could improve in our business. And if they found a way to do that, if I could track a bottom line impact, then they were going to get a percentage of whatever that savings was or the profit potential of what they dragged. If I could track it, then I was going to incentivize them. And boy, was that powerful. That's what entrepreneurs are all about. Okay, set clear expectations. Now, so many people ask me when I coach clients, why don't people show up on time? Why do they perform sometimes and they're not consistent? Why do they show up late? Why are they tardy? You get the idea. It probably happens in your restaurant. And my question to them is, have you set clear expectations? Do you have a system of accountability so that you hold people to what they say they can and will do? And oftentimes they're like, no, we don't have that in place. And that is the framework for making things happen. So what's the solution? I call them career descriptions versus job descriptions. Again, a little different than what the industry, but everyone knows what a job description is. But a career description has 3 different components to it. It always started at the top with what I call key success factors. Now, it's different for every job in your restaurant, whether it's a fry cook or a server or a bartender or a leader, it doesn't matter. Key success factors are what you would expect that person to bring to the table on their first day of work before any training happens. Just what is it? It's a series of words, it's a couple of phrases, and it's different for everyone. It might be eyes wide open, it might be hustle, it might be cash handling expertise or accuracy with cash handling. It could be any of those things. It could be personality plus because they're interacting with your guests every day. But this is what you expect them to bring to the table before any training happens. The second part, the primary part, is what I call primary or main responsibilities. Now, again, it varies for every job, but imagine that you have dishwasher perhaps, and you list out in accurate detail every one of the responsibilities that that dishwasher or line cook or whatever is responsible for. And then you sit down on the first day of work, and again, some training may be involved here, but next to every one of these primary responsibilities, there is a blank line. Why is that there? So imagine you give the career description to the dishwasher. You're sitting there and you read one line at a time, and you read it to the person and you ask two questions. Do you understand what I expect in this responsibility? And two, can and will you do this to the best of your ability? Okay, let's just assume they can do it now and they answer yes, then they initial that line. If a little training is involved, you revisit this after they've been trained and then they answer the question. Yes, I can and will do this to the best of my ability. They initial that line. And there's the accountability, because 2 weeks later or a month later, you notice that they said they could do this and they're doing that, and it's deviating from the performance you expect. That's when you sit them down in private and you don't criticize them. The boss in the old days would criticize and say, get out there and do it the right way. Instead, we critique. And instead of, telling them, go out there and do it the right way, I used to throw the ball in their court and say, you said you could do this, and I'm seeing you do that. What can you do to get your performance back on track to meet that expectation? And then I would just sit back and wait for the answer. And they knew that they had to correct the behavior immediately because they didn't want to be called on the carpet again 15 minutes later or next week. And it immediately corrected the behavior. And that kept things on track. Disciplinary procedures are very, very important. Now, there are minor infractions. It might be someone shows up late. Frequently, that's a minor infraction, or they missed a shift entirely, okay? Major infractions might be bullying or harassment of some kind, or even drug or alcohol use on property. These are major infractions, okay? You need a template with a series of consequences for any infraction, minor or major, and you need to be fair and impartial, and you need to be consistent in delivering a consequence. Now, for a minor infraction, they might lose a key shift, or they might lose an employee meal for that day. Okay, those are consequences. Something more serious, they might be terminated if it's a zero tolerance policy for harassment or bullying. But you need documentation also. Now, I used to have an employee file for every single person. Now, this is a system, but once it's in place, it gives you accountability also, because you document every time somebody does something great and they earn a praise, or there's a recognition or reward that they've won. You document that in their file. Or if there's an infraction of some sort, or a write-up, or a consequence, you document that as well. And now you've got all the notes that happen over the course of, I like to think of it as 6-month periods, because it's very important that we deliver next a performance review. Now, it's simple because the performance review template is simply the career description. You simply revisit those primary responsibilities, and then you simply give them a letter grade. Responsibility 1, you got an A on this. Number 2, you got a B on that. But you've got the notes and you've got the backup, and then you give them an overall grade that's an average of all the responsibilities. And the part I missed on the career description, sorry about this, part number 3, and it's okay, we're going to go back to that. Besides the key success factors and the primary responsibilities, the third is, where can I go with this? Where can I move up? What position can I take on next to earn more responsibility if I do a stellar job over that 6-month period, okay, on my performance review? All right, so the performance review template simply revisits the career description, and then you simply critique their performance, give them a letter grade overall, and then if they have a stellar grade, then hopefully you have an opportunity to give them more responsibility, and there should always be an incentive attached to it. Now, I did that for 2 decades plus, running restaurants, operating a business, not a restaurant. And I tell you, I had a 96% retention rate, even during challenging times in my restaurants, because we had this framework, we were consistent, we were impartial, and I held people accountable. So that's really the key to some of the challenges that we're having today. Mistake number 4, enabling order taking. Now, I travel the country quite a bit. I speak at a number of food events and restaurant shows across the country. And I dine out a lot. Of course I do, in a variety of restaurants. And it's not always a 5-star fine dining place. Sometimes they're family casual places. It could even be a Denny's for breakfast. It doesn't matter. But being in this business, when you dine out, we have a critical eye, don't we? We know what a restaurant is doing well versus what they're not doing. Well, I get 9 times out of 10, regardless of the price point of the restaurant, I get what we call the order taker. This person might be friendly and personable and be really attentive to my needs, but they don't know the first thing. I ask them a question and they can't answer it. Let me go ask my manager. That person is not well trained, okay? And they're just simply defaulting. They might have the pen and pad in hand, and they'll expect that you've looked at the menu and that you're going to order what sounds good to you, and they're just going to take the order and deliver the food and bring the check. And to me, that's always been an ordinary experience, not an extraordinary one. I was all about taking people on what we call the magical journey, telling them everything that we knew they were going to enjoy and appreciate about our restaurant. It all started with a question. If we didn't recognize a guest, we'd ask them, is this your first time coming? And if so, let me tell you, this is what's special. And we had a series of recommendations based on training. Product knowledge is vital. Okay, it's all about product and restaurant knowledge. So you know your menus inside and out, and then you also know the restaurant itself. What's unique, special, different? What are the hooks? You get the idea. And that's really well training translates into really amazing hospitality. Hospitality is the foundation of our business, as you know. Okay, I want you to close your eyes for just a moment and imagine an iceberg floating on the surface of the ocean. Okay, I'm sure you all have that iceberg in mind. Here's where I'm going with this. Take a look at this. This is a really powerful analogy for restaurants. Look on top of the water. That's probably what you imagine. Most people figure, or thought about this ice that's floating on the surface of the ocean. It sunk the Titanic. It's huge and all that kind of stuff. As large as that ice is on the surface, what very few people realize is the greatest mass of an iceberg is hidden beneath the surface of the ocean or the water. And that's where all the opportunities are. So look on top of the water. I call this the land of the order taker because these are daily sales in any restaurant that just happen, okay? The person has a menu, they decide what sounds good to them, and then the order taker takes the order, delivers the food, and brings the check. Again, an ordinary experience. But below the surface, I call this the land of the sales star because these are all the hidden opportunities that unless you know with product knowledge, then you can't recommend them, and it's not going to translate into sales. So let's talk about them. Upsells. What's an upsell? If you have a bar and someone orders a gin and tonic, the server or the bartender would say, would you prefer Bombay Sapphire or Tanqueray 10? That's an example of an upsell to a premium product. It increases the check average and it gives them a better experience. Add-ons. I've always believed that every restaurant menu, hey, we're talking menus here. This is brought to you by Terraslate. I've always thought that a really great restaurant menu has many opportunities to enhance a meal. So an add-on might be if you have a salad category, you might add shrimp or scallops or chicken to a Caesar salad. Or in my case, we did that, but we also had 3 different kinds of cheeses you could add to your salad. You could add blue cheese, feta cheese, goat cheese, and all these things were additional simple charges that enhanced the meal, and my servers would ask them, would you prefer? That's an example of assuming the sale, and those are add-ons. If you have a steakhouse, it might be specialty rubs on that steak. It might be sauteed mushrooms and onions and peppers to add to that steak. It enhances the meal, and it's another opportunity to increase the check. Most profitable items. We're going to get into that in a moment, but you need to know, your staff need to know which items are the most profitable items, okay? And make a recommendation every table, every time. Bottles of wine. It's the easiest thing because wine is a conversation starter. Lots of people like wine, and it's been proven that just because someone orders a bottle of wine at a table, after that's finished, because it goes so quickly, if it's a 2-top, it's 2 glasses each. If it's a 4-top, it's 1 glass roughly. And then people still order their favorite mixed drink cocktail or beer. It's just a conversation starter that enhances the meal. And it's also like having an extra guest at a table that orders, say, a minimum $25 and up, it could be $100 bottle of wine, but there's no extra, you don't have an extra person at that table that you're serving every course of the meal to. It's simply one bottle of wine for a good amount of money. And some states even allow you to cork a bottle that has not been finished. So you could tell these people, you can take it back to your place afterwards and enjoy it in front of the fireplace or whatever. And that's a perfect upsell to another bottle of wine. Because if they enjoyed the first bottle, you can suggest, why not, have another bottle? And if you don't finish it, certain states allow that they can, simply take it home if you staple the bag and cork it. Okay, desserts go without saying. Okay, we all have desserts and dessert programs, but do we bring them to life? Do we make it so appealing that the guests can see it, smell it, and taste it before it comes out of the kitchen? If we have desserts, and that's a given, what about coffee? Lots of people drink coffee or order coffee at the end of the meal, but when was the last time you went out to dinner and your server or bartender asked you, would you prefer Bailey's or Kahlua or Jameson's or Frangelico, maybe with a dollop of whipped cream and some chocolate shavings on top? It's the perfect end to your meal. Doesn't that sound appealing? I really like Bailey's at the end of a meal when I go to a restaurant, and suddenly, that $3 or $4 coffee turned into a $14 coffee. And it's a beautiful thing. The guests enjoyed the experience. They enjoyed the Bailey's and the coffee or whatever, and the check average increased. Retail merchandise. We talked about building a brand. If you build a powerful brand, you can create all types of logo wear that people will buy on impulse. If you merchandise it correctly in the entranceway, people see it twice, when they first come into your restaurant, when they leave the restaurant. And my team even wore the logo merchandise as uniforms, and that sold the merchandise. And we probably sold about $30,000 a month in just t-shirts and hats and that kind of stuff in my biggest restaurant. But the real success, there's a company out there called the Black Dog, and they started with a restaurant on the island of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. And now they have retail shops all over the place because that brand became so iconic with just an image of a black Labrador retriever and the font of that restaurant, the Black Dog, Martha's Vineyard, and now it sells online, and they literally have a business. They have a 7-figure merchandise business online that all started from a single restaurant. If that's not creating a powerful brand, I can't think of what is. But this is what's possible. Finally, live music and events. Not every restaurant can do this, but if you have a bar or a lounge, if you can carve out a little space and you bring in an acoustic musician playing the songs we all love to hear, the Van Morrisons and the Beatles and all that kind of stuff, people really enjoy the experience. It's a draw. It will bring them in, and they will also stay a little longer. They'll eat the food, drink the beer and wine and cocktails and all that kind of stuff, and hopefully buy the merchandise. So it's a win-win-win, and it's not very expensive. You can get an acoustic guitar player in for a couple hours and maybe spend $300, and the return on investment is certainly there. My biggest restaurant had acoustic musicians 3 days a week, and we had big rock bands 3 days a week. And boy, if that didn't move the needle on our profits and our bar sales. So these are all ideas that are upsells, add-ons, most profitable items. Again, all these hidden opportunities, the order taker misses and leaves lots of money on the table. Okay, here's a pet peeve of mine. Yes, no questions. What's a yes, no question? So when a server, an order taker, shows up at your table and just happens to ask at the end of the meal, does anyone want dessert? Can I bring you anything else? Would you like a coffee? That's a yes, no question, because the answer you're going to give them is yes or no. Well, the odds of making the sale when you present a question that way are terrible. They're 50-50. 50% chance they might say, sure, bring me that, or 50% chance, more than likely, they're going to say, no, check please. So how do you increase your odds of making the sale? Choices, okay? You give people choices. Now, here's where the product knowledge comes in. If your team are so well trained that they can describe something, again, so that the guest can see it, smell it, and taste it, they're going to make the sale. Now, this is simple math. Follow me here. Imagine there are 3 choices, but we're talking about desserts here. Choice A might be the raspberry cream disaster. Now, I always had interesting names for all of my menu items because it created intrigue and attention, and they sold themselves in some cases. And then it led to questions to the staff. Wow, tell me about the raspberry cream disaster. That sounds decadent. So I recommend that you have really interesting names. So choice A, Raspberry Cream Disaster, has a 33 and a third percent chance that it's going to sound great to the guest and they're going to say, yes, bring me that. Choice B might be the Chocolate Peanut Butter Blast. Same odds, 33.3%. And then the third choice, of course, is the no choice. There's only three choices here, A, B, or no. All three of those things add up to 100%. Simple statistics here. But suddenly, by giving two choices and bringing them to life, Raspberry Cream Disaster, Chocolate Peanut Butter Blast, you just doubled your odds of making the sale. And now it's 66.6% chance of getting a yes versus a 33% no. So much better than 50-50. Works. It's been proven. I mean, I proved this in my restaurants for decades. It's just a simple technique. Okay, mistake number 5, not recognizing and rewarding top performance. We talked about this. Now, if we go back to the career description, I mentioned the third piece was where can they go to move up, to take the next step if they do a stellar job. Now, that's not for everyone. We'd like to think that most everyone wants to move up and stay with us forever. But if you've got a stellar line cook and they just love being a line cook and that's all they want to do, that's okay. I always encourage that. We had recognition and rewards programs every week, and those people got recognized, but they didn't want to go anywhere. They just wanted to be a great line cook. So again, that's okay, but we certainly want to recognize those people that want to move up. So we want to recognize and reward and incentivize top performance. Okay, recognition and rewards. I had 2 different programs that were super powerful. The first was called Difference Dollars. Now, this was a huge morale builder. So how did this work? It was so simple. The busiest times in any of our restaurants are, of course, Friday and Saturday nights generally, okay? Unless you got a fast casual quick serve place and you're selling burgers, in the middle of the day, then maybe it's Friday and Saturday in the middle of the day. Doesn't matter. But the best time is when the majority of your employees are on site. Now, my biggest restaurant had 60 employees, and not everyone worked every shift, but obviously I was going to reach all of them either Friday night or Saturday night before the start of service. After a while, after we started doing this, people looked forward to it. We gathered the crew on Friday before service and Saturday before service, either in the dining room or in the kitchen. Everyone gathered around me. They knew what it was about. And Difference Dollars was about recognizing someone for going above and beyond the scope of their job. Maybe they helped a team member. Maybe there was a busser walking through the kitchen and he slipped on the wet floor and the whole bus bucket went up in the air and all the dishes and plates and glasses smashed and whatnot. And there just happened to be a server in the kitchen and she had a quick moment. It wasn't her job, but she jumped right in and she helped clean up the mess. That was going above and beyond. Maybe the person helped a guest with a problem and solved an issue for the guest. It didn't matter, just something that was above and beyond. Now, maybe I, as the owner, when I was on site, saw somebody doing something extraordinary. That's a winner. But anyone that worked for us could recognize someone and just nominate them for Difference Dollars. Now, I always had an open door policy. When I was in the restaurants, anyone could knock on my door at any time. The door was always open. It was never closed. And they could interrupt me because my people were the most important element, foundational element of my business. And I encouraged them. If they had a great idea, let me know about it. So someone might knock on my door and say, hey, Roger, can I tell you about what Sally did? What did Sally do? That's a winner. So here's how the program works. Friday, Saturday night, we're in the dining room or the kitchen. Everyone's gathered around, and I would announce, and this week's winner is Sally Johnson. I would go into glowing detail as to what that difference was. And then I would thank Sally Johnson. I would give her a $20 bill and a can of Red Bull. And I would thank her very much for making a difference and for working for us. Most people would think it stopped right there, but it didn't. I went into my office and I had a template on the computer for Difference Dollars. And big and bold, it would say Difference Dollars, and there were big stars in the corners. And then I would type in this week's winner's names, Sally Johnson, and then below that, I would type in glowing detail the difference that Sally Johnson made. I had all these frames in my office from Target or Walmart or whatever, the 8.5 by 11 computer paper sized wooden frames with the glass. And we hung those up every single week. And in the kitchen, in the employee area where they hung up their coats, in the hallway between the dining room and the bar, in the employee bathroom, they were on the ceiling after a while. And it was so gratifying whenever we hired someone new. It was so gratifying to me to see on their first break, maybe they worked a couple hours and now they're having their soda and on their 15 or 20-minute break, and they're walking down the rows and they're just reading all these differences that people made over the years. There's the company culture I talked about. It spoke volumes about expectations, about pride, about how people approach their jobs and how we recognize and reward people for that performance. And that up-leveled team spirit and morale. And that was a strong company culture. I called it a culture of hospitality, family, and fun. It was all about hospitality. It was all about helping others. We wanted our guests to feel like family. We wanted our team members to feel like family. And we wanted everyone to have fun. And this was a very foundational program for that. And it was just huge. The next thing was prizes. Now, we all work with a variety of suppliers. We have food service suppliers. We have liquor suppliers. We buy so much from so many different suppliers. I was at a beer distributor or a liquor distributor once having a meeting a long time ago. And I'm walking through, they're giving me a tour, and I walk by a conference room, and on the table is all this valuable merchandise. There was sporting goods, there were electronics like iPads and stuff, and there were wearables of all kinds, with logos on them from all different liquor brands. There were neon beer signs and all this kind of stuff. And I just happened to say, "What's all that?" And they're like, "Well, we have this employee recognition program. And when someone does something really amazing, we give them a prize and they get to pick it out." And a little light bulb went off in my head. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, "Well, why is it sitting there?" And they're like, "Well, it's kind of a good problem to have. We do business with lots and lots of companies and we ask them for this stuff and they give us all these prizes that we deliver, but we get more stuff than we can actually give away. And we don't want to give it to someone if they don't actually earn it. And then it ends up collecting dust in the warehouse until, we don't have to ask for any more stuff until we get rid of it, but you get the idea." I'm like, "You know what? I've been doing business with you for years. We spend lots of money with you. Could I have any of that stuff? I'd love to start an employee recognition program." The very next day with my delivery, what do you think shows up? Everything that was on that conference room table gets loaded into my restaurant. I didn't even know it was coming. I had to empty out a supply closet to put all this valuable stuff in and lock it up. And again, it was so gratifying when I had a new dishwasher. Maybe they were working for me for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and the kid's in the steam and, it's all hot back there and he's hustling and he's really cranking through the dishes. And I loved that approach. And I'd go up and I'd introduce him to myself to him and I'd say, "Hey, I'm Roger. Thanks so much. I love the way, you're doing your job. That's team spirit. That's what we're all about. Let's go take a trip to the closet." And then all of a sudden they get all squirrely and nervous and jerky because they have no idea what the closet is. And I open the door and I'm like, "See something you like? It's yours. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing a great job. Take it." And they're like, "Really? Really?" What a morale builder that was. So that's recognition rewards times 2. Okay, mistake number 6. Here's we get into the profitability. This is the biggest needle mover. Now, with volatility of markets and rising cost of goods and huge labor that we can't control right now, the one thing we can control is our menu profit. But you couldn't do that if you don't regularly cost out every item on your menu. Now, this is homework, but it's also a system because once the system's in place, it's maintenance. But this is vital information that you must know. Okay, let's start with menu item plate cost. Every single menu item, whether it's an appetizer or it's a burger or it's a pizza or it's a soup or a salad or an entree, these are all individual categories. And you might have 3 or 4 appetizers and 3 or 4 salads and a couple of burgers, and you get the idea, and 15 entrees and 5 desserts. You need a cost sheet for every single menu item because you don't know what your profit is unless you cost out the ingredients that go into every dish. Now, it all starts with what we call an order guide, or you can also use your invoices. But if you do business with some of the big suppliers, the top 3 food service suppliers, they absolutely will give you an order guide, and it lists every single item you buy from them and the quantity it comes in and the price you pay, whether it's by the case or the side of beef or the block of cheese or the number 10 can, it's there. And all you have to do is reverse engineer. Now, you might need your kitchen manager to do this or your chef, or if you're involved in this, you can do it yourself. But again, it's a team effort. You list ingredient by ingredient that goes into every single dish in every category. So follow me here. This is a mashed potato pizza. It's a very popular pizza place in my town. It's actually got 15 locations in 3 different states, and it's my kids' favorite pizza. And this is a recent cost sheet for a pizza that they're selling that my kids absolutely love. So obviously down the left side, you can see all the ingredients that go into this one mashed potato pizza. Next to that, you'll see ounces or units, okay? So they've broken down from the order guide or the invoices. They figured out of the case of, well, let's think about a bag of flour. A bag of flour comes in a 50-pound bag, right? You got to figure out how many ounces go in each dough ball. So it's simple math. You know, the quantity is on the bag of flour. You just figure out how many ounces is your dough ball, and then you break down the bag of flour by ounces, and you get a cost. So in the middle, or just toward the right, you'll see cost per ounce or unit. They figured out that they have 8 ounces in every dough ball, and from the large bag of flour and the other things that go into their dough, it's 2 cents an ounce. You plug this information in, and this is a template that I have. And this is available to you. I'll tell you about it at the end of the presentation. But it automatically calculates 16 cents value for the dough. It automatically calculates 19 cents for the olive oil that's brushed on the dough. There's different cheeses. There's Asiago and mozzarella cheese. Okay, there's more mozzarella. There's 4 ounces. It's 18 cents an ounce. This automatically calculates 72 cents. And on and on and on down through the ingredients. All you have to do is plug in that math. It'll automatically calculate the value. And then at the bottom, you're going to see plate cost total, the first line in dark blue. And it's $2.80, which is the sum total of all the different quantities of every ingredient. That is your plate cost. Now, I don't want to miss this, so take a look at just above that blue line. The last ingredient is the box. Since the pandemic, so many things go out the door with online ordering and takeout and delivery. You've got to include the takeout container or the box it goes in, even the utensils, because that is part of the food cost if it goes out the door. Think about when someone doesn't finish their meal in your restaurant and how often that happens. Now, you might classify that as, just a dry good item. That's the cost of doing business. But if you have a lot of takeout containers going out the door, then that should be included as well. So you'll see that there's 38 cents for the pizza box here. Okay, let's go back to plate cost. $2.80 is what it costs this restaurant to serve a pizza to that one customer. I like to use the word guest instead of customer. $2.80 is the plate cost. Now, on the menu, this restaurant charges $18 for the pizza. Nice, right? And then the spreadsheet automatically calculates 2 different calculations. Food cost percentage is simply the plate cost of $2.80 divided by the $18 menu cost, and now we've got a 16% food cost on that pizza. Very nice. And then the profit is simply the menu cost, what we charge the guest, $18, subtracting the ingredient cost or the plate cost of $2.80, and that gives us a $15.20 profit. All right, that's one single item on our menu. If we have a cost sheet for all of these individual items, what I would do, or what I normally have done in my restaurants, is I rank them in terms of most profitable to least profitable by category. So this is the number 1 most profitable, the second most profitable, the third most profitable, and so on and so forth. You need to know this because then you train your team which items are the most profitable. What I find out when I consult, I consult on this particular piece a lot. Restaurants' biggest sellers are often their least profitable items in all categories. They might be filling their seats, they might be busy, and they're leaving lots of profit on the table because lower profit items are stealing profit from what they wish they were selling or the more higher profit items. But the worst part is the spread or the profit difference in each category is multiple dollars. I see this all the time. You might have 5 appetizers. One might contribute a $2 profit. Another might contribute a $3.50 profit. One might even contribute a $5 or more profit. And suddenly you're selling lots and lots of appetizers with a $2 profit versus a $5 profit. You're filling your seats and you're losing money. But it's worse on the entree side because I see restaurants losing $10, $12, $13 and more because lower profit entrees are stealing sales. You get the idea. All of this is in a template in what I call the Restaurant Academy, which I'll tell you about later. Don't have to reinvent the wheel. All the tools are there, but this is something you should do absolutely regularly. And if you haven't costed out your menu in a while, you could be losing money on items with rising costs, and you're paying the highest labor ever. And the only way you can literally put money to your bottom line is maximize your menu profit. And that's a mistake so many restaurants are making. I see it all the time. Mistake number 7, not taking inventory. I can't tell you how many restaurants that I talk to, whether I'm speaking across the country, I ask that question all the time, or with a new consulting client. Do you take inventory? Oh, yeah. We place our orders, 3 times a week or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's not inventory. Inventory is not placing next week's order. It's calculating the value, the accurate value of your goods on hand at any given period of time to get a value. Now, I always recommend that you do this 4 weeks in a row. Why? Okay. Let's just say, now there's a system to this. It's a 2-step process. First, you have a template that lists every single item that comes into your restaurant, every food item in different storage locations. Now, you might have a big walk-in cooler. You might have a freezer or a couple of freezers. You might have sandwich fridges. We all have a dry goods storage area for non-perishables that don't need to be refrigerated. There's numerous storage locations for our food and beverage in our restaurants. So the template that I have also in the Academy lists out all your different storage areas. And then in each storage area, you decide, where do I go first? I guess I'd start with the walk-in cooler. And you itemize, you organize the list of ingredients in your walk-in by how you would actually walk in the door and efficiently count them. And then go on and on and on down the list in all the storage areas. The second part of the process is calculating your true food cost percentage. You can't do that unless you take your inventory, physical counts, 2 weeks in a row. So it's a 2-step process, and that's the only accurate way to figure out what your food costs actually are. Now, why should I take it 4 weeks in a row? Okay, the very first time you take your inventory, and the template automatically calculates the value, because like the menu item plate cost, you need to enter in how the goods come in to your restaurant. Is it by the case? Is it by the single block of cheese? Is it a giant jar of pickles? You get the idea. You accurately list the price and how it breaks down. And then when you take your physical count, you enter that into the template, and it'll automatically calculate the value. Whether you got 30 cans of cheese, you know what I mean, or a case of this or 2 cases of that, it'll calculate the value. And then at the very bottom line, it's going to give you an inventory grand total. It might be $5,000. It might be $10,000. It varies based on the size of your restaurant. Let's just say you take the physical count week 1. Now, this is very important also. When do you take the counts? At the end of the busiest time in your restaurant, which is usually at the end of a busy weekend. So let's just say it's Sunday afternoon after the close of business, or Sunday night, or maybe you're burnt out from working really hard all weekend. Then you do it first thing Monday morning, but you've got to do it the same day and roughly the same time for consistency, because the last thing you want to do is be taking your physical counts on a Monday morning, and then all of a sudden the delivery truck shows up and you're counting stuff and new boxes are coming in. That's a no-no. You have to do it before the deliveries start coming in the following week. Okay, once you've got your inventory value, let's just say it's $5,000. A week goes by. What happens during that week? We have purchases from a variety of suppliers. So my template, you list what's the date, who the supplier is, and what the food total only is, or the beverage total. It's the same process for your liquor program, your beverage program, as it is for food, okay? But let's just say you have a master template for food. That's what we're talking about. The purchases of food only. And I see so many restaurants making the mistake of including mop heads and soda straws and plastic wrap, and that's not food. If it serves to a customer, it's food. If it's a pizza box that goes out the door, count that as well. All right, that's the process. A week later, it's Sunday night or Monday morning again before the trucks come in. You go through the process again, and now you've got 2 weeks of physical counts. The very first time you count it, that is called your beginning inventory. 1 week later, Monday morning, Sunday night, whatever, you calculate it again, and it might be $6,000 this time. That's your ending inventory. The second template you need, and I don't want to confuse anyone, you just took 2 physical counts, you got 2 different values of goods on hand at any given time, and then on the second template, it's a formula. It's beginning inventory, the first week, plus all the purchases of food only for that week, minus ending inventory, divided by usage. Equals usage. Let's start that again. Beginning inventory plus purchases minus ending inventory equals usage. What's usage? Usage is anything that you sold to a customer for full price. You discounted to an employee at half price. You threw it in the trash because it was spoiled. It was wasted. It got stolen out the back door. It doesn't matter. You don't calculate this. The template automatically calculates this. When you have that usage number, you then divide by 7 days of sales, and it's very important to get the dates accurate. You plug in your sales of food only, not beverages, just food, and it's going to give you your food cost percentage. That takes us to why we do this 4 weeks in a row. So you do this 1 week, you count, second week you count, third week you count again, and then fourth week you count again. The first time you run that second spreadsheet, you might get a 30% food cost. You might be happy with that. That might be your sweet spot. You take it a week later, and now it's a 33. You take it a week after that, and now it's a 28. You don't know what your food cost is because there's no consistency. If it spikes to 36, you got to investigate the problem. Do I have too much waste and spoilage? Is someone stealing steaks out the back door? If you don't calculate your inventory and calculate your food cost, you could be losing money day after day after day, and again, wondering, why is my bank account not growing? Why is this restaurant not profitable? Mistake number 7, not taking inventory. Okay, it's not about next week's order. Mistake number 8, failure to calculate prime cost. Now pay attention, this one's super important. Prime costs are the biggest expenses in your restaurant, okay? It's your food and beverage and labor costs. Here's the formula for that. Step 1. Now, this is a 3-step process. The very first step is getting your food cost percentage. I just told you how to calculate that. Let's just assume that your very first, your sweet spot, with consistency is 32%. You like that? You're happy with a 32% food cost. Your beverage cost is much lower, especially if you have lots of alcohol sales, because obviously liquor sales, beer and wine and all those things lower the cost. It's so profitable to sell alcohol because the time it takes to make a drink and serve a drink and the profitability of it versus the time it takes and the labor it takes to prepare all the food items. Okay, you get the idea. 32% food cost plus 22% beverage cost. Now you got 54% cost of goods. That's step 1. Step 2, you want to divide by 2 because it's an average of your food and beverage cost. 54% divided by 2 is 27%. That's the number you keep in mind. Now the third step, add your labor cost percentage, okay? 27% food and beverage cost. Let's just say you calculate your labor cost to be 32%. You add those two together and it's 59%. Now, labor cost is something that a lot of my clients aren't doing either, and it's as simple as a 2-step process there. I've got a template in the academy, and you simply figure out when your payroll report comes in at the end of a week or at the end of 2 weeks, the bottom line, whatever it costs with all the taxes taken out plus the fee you pay your payroll company, it might be $10,000, it might be $14,000. That's your total labor cost for the week for every position in your restaurant, including yourself or your leaders if you pay them salaries or yourself. All of that. The big number is your total. Okay, you take that number and you divide that number by your total sales for the week off of your point of sale system in that 7-day period, and that's going to give you your labor cost. Now, the second step was your kitchen labor is your most expensive labor. So I also used to track that, and I would separate all my kitchen employees. And then on my point of sale system, I would separate out my food and I would track just my kitchen labor. And if there were spikes, there is a template in the academy where you can zero in on your kitchen labor department by department. When you find your sweet spot and it varies a week later, it's a deep dive into why did the spike happen? How do I isolate it? How do I stop the bleeding? Okay, so that's how you calculate labor costs. So your prime cost total is now 59%. What does that mean? It means if you have anywhere between a 55 to 65%, that's something to shoot for. because that means for every $1 of sales, 55 to 65 cents of that goes to food, beverage, and labor, leaving very little to pay all your other overhead expenses. Okay, that includes the lease on your restaurant business, or the mortgage if you own the property, and the dumpster in the parking lot, and the fine linens on the table, and the internet, and the utilities, and all this other stuff. That leaves what? 45 cents, 35 cents, depending, left over for every dollar of sales to pay all that. So if you have any hope of making money, you need to stay in your sweet spot. But it first starts with calculating that. So remember the formula: food cost plus beverage cost divided by 2 plus labor cost gives you your prime cost percentage. Super important. And so many restaurants are just not calculating prime cost. And you can't run by the seat of your pants. You got to know this stuff. All right, let's recap. We're just about done here. Restaurant mistakes. Number 1, running a restaurant. I told you got to run a business, not a restaurant. Number 2, have a mission statement? No, create a company culture and nurture that culture and instill pride in your people. Number 3, don't be a manager, be a leader. Don't enable order taking. Train people to be sales stars. Number 5, not rewarding top performance. Okay, recognition rewards programs build morale, team spirit, camaraderie, and they lower turnover. Okay, not costing out your menu. That was a biggie. You gotta know, what does it cost me to serve every single menu item to the guest, and what is my profit on that item, and training my people on which items are most profitable. I didn't mention this, but there's another template that absolutely maximizes your menu profit. It's called the Menu Profit Accelerator in the Academy, and it teaches you, 1, how to cost out your menu, and then it gives you a new template. Once you've ranked everything from the most profitable to the least profitable in every category, you plug that into this template, you press the go button, with information that you also populate from your point of sale computer on volume of sales for every item, and it literally shows you where you're making and losing money every single day, and you might be totally amazed. I told you I specialize in this. I worked with 2 different clients in the past year, and they were both around $3 million in annual sales, pretty nice restaurant business. They did busy lunch and dinner service, and I showed them that in every category, both restaurants, they were losing lots of money because their least profitable items were more popular, bigger sellers than the items they wanted to sell at a higher profit. The spread difference in each category is many, many dollars. So of that $3 million in sales, one restaurant left a potential profit of $343,000 on the table, and the other one was closer to $360,000. What an eye-opener. It hit these owners like a ton of bricks. And we immediately went back and re-engineered their menu. And what you need to know is it's absolutely possible to have a menu where every item contributes a similar profit. Now, as long as it's $1 or less, I don't care. But you can't be losing $3, $4, $5, $10 every time you sell this versus that. Your bank account will thank you. Not taking inventory. Again, you could have a waste, a theft, a spoilage problem. Stuff's walking out the door. Again, you're losing money if you don't know your food cost percentages. And then finally, not calculating prime cost. Your sum total of your food and beverage cost and your labor cost gives you the prime cost. And again, 55 to 65% is your sweet spot. Hopefully it's closer to 55 because that gives you more money to spend on all those other overhead expenses. And this is how we run a business, okay, versus running a restaurant. All right, let me tell you about my podcast. This is absolutely free. You can subscribe on every major podcast player. I've been doing this for 6 years now. We have 427 released episodes. I get some celebrity guests. If you look on the phone, you probably recognize that guy. If you've ever watched the TV show Bar Rescue, John Taffer needs no introduction. Celebrity. He's got 13 seasons of this show. What a dynamic personality he is. So we interview every single week leading lights in the restaurant space. And we talk about guest service and hospitality, and we talk about marketing. We talked about finances and technology and anything that will help you improve your restaurant business. It's absolutely free on any major podcast player, or if you want it to come in your email inbox, you can just go to restaurantrockstars.com, give us your email. We won't spam you, but now the podcast will show up in your inbox every single week. Or you can watch any episode on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and we hope you follow us there. All right. Let me tell you about the Academy. I've been dripping little ideas and snippets of actionable ideas and templates and all these things that are available in the Academy. It is a system for both owners and there's that word manager. I need to change that on the slide because again, I like leaders. It's for owners, leaders, and your team. Okay, if you're just starting a first restaurant, it's everything you need to know to start that restaurant, open the doors, and run it profitably. The finance module, everything we talked about that was numbers related today, inventory, food, beverage, and labor costs, daily break even, menu profit accelerator, it's all in the finances section. Okay. Sales training. I have a program called Sales Stars that teaches hospitality, recognizing opportunities, and making suggestions through product and restaurant knowledge that increase sales and deliver amazing hospitality experiences to your guests. That's been proven to double and even triple sales in my restaurants, and we've actually sold these in many countries around the world, and it's doing the same for my customers. Marketing. So many people waste money on marketing that they can't track the return on investment. You know, we get caught in a moment of weakness and somebody picks up the phone and calls us and you answer it and it's some radio guy that says, hey, I'll put you on the radio and everyone will, listening and driving their car to work is going to come to your restaurant after work. Well, if you can't track it, you'll never know if that was money well spent. So all these marketing programs in the Academy are proven. I've used them for decades. Low-cost marketing ideas that deliver ROI, and best of all, you know where the business is coming from. Finally, we have efficiencies. Across your restaurant, we dial in, making it as efficient as it can be. So it's all about systems. I have a special deal for Terraslate customers and those watching today. The code is TS25. So if you're interested in the Academy, you can scan this QR code. It'll take you right to the Academy page. You'll get the full detail of everything that's included. And we're actually giving 25% off the Academy, okay, at restaurantrockstars.com or using this QR code and then using the code TS, short for Terraslate, TS25 will give you 25% off. It's interesting, we have two different versions. We have a single user version or we have an enterprise version. Single user is for you, the owner that wants to put all these systems in place, or you can give it to your general leader or whatever, and that person takes over. But the enterprise version, if you have multiple restaurants or even if you have a single location, you can create teams in the Academy, and then the leaders can create these courses and assign any course to any employee, an unlimited number of employees. You might say, we're not taking inventory right now. Okay, kitchen manager, I want you to put an inventory system in place. Here's the complete tutorials. This is going to teach you how to do it. It's going to allow you to execute it, and then I can actually track your progress in a personal dashboard. So it really empowers. It creates entrepreneurs that I talked about, and it's turnkey. It's like, there you go. So either you want the single user version or the enterprise version is up to you, but it's 25% off only with this presentation using that promo code at checkout. All right. I have to thank Terraslate again. They've been great supporters of my podcast. They're now presenting these presentations once a month, and I can't thank you enough. Great people, great products, by the way. Now, I travel the country and I go to all these food shows and I see Terraslate at these restaurant shows, and it's just great to catch up. But again, 100% waterproof paper and menus. They're rip-proof, waterproof, antimicrobial, and don't forget the overnight shipping. Like, you want something lightning fast, and they'll even help you design a great menu. So thanks again to Terraslate. Thank you for listening. My website again, restaurantrockstars.com. And if you have a personal question, any business challenge that you're having, if you want me to answer that question, you can reach out to me, Roger, R-O-G-E-R, at restaurantrockstars.com. And also, any Academy membership includes a 1-hour call with me. So if you purchase the Academy, we can set up a meeting and chat. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. Have a great day and stay safe. Stay well.